There's a deer somewhere over there. Good morning. It's a beautiful sunny morning, even though there are a bit of clouds in the sky. And it's so bright. It's so bright. I wanted to come outside and take a walk out in nature and record a quick video. What am I going to talk about today? Today I'm talking about mental health, because mental health is paramount. This morning I woke up quite early to make an appointment to my psychiatrist. I have a psychiatrist and I have a therapist. I haven't seen my therapist in quite a while, months actually, that I haven't been to the therapist, because I don't think that we are a good match. The thing about therapy is that therapy is like a relationship, because it is a relationship. And to find a therapist requires chemistry. To find a therapy relationship that works, that is beneficial, especially for the patient or client, whichever you might prefer, it takes chemistry, and it's really important to find the right therapist if somebody wants to be helped and if they want to understand themselves better through therapy. Whew, that was a bit of a climb, which is why I'm panting, but this is exactly why I love taking walks outside, because it's a workout and it's healthy. So back to therapy. I have been in therapy for years now, actually, on and off, but the first time I went to therapy was in 2011, when I first got hospitalized. I want to share this story because I think that somebody out there might be helped by hearing my story and by understanding that if you do find yourself in a situation where you feel like you might benefit from psychiatric or therapy services, then you are not alone. And I say that because I've benefited greatly from therapy. Ooh, the sun. Let me see if I can show the sun. So, as I was saying, I have benefited greatly from receiving psychiatric services and also going to therapy. And it has transformed my life for the better. In what ways, you may ask? So, I have ADHD, and because of my ADHD, I tend to be scatterbrained sometimes, actually, most of the time. It works really well with my creativity, but in terms of structure, it doesn't work that well. So, stuff like time management, simple things like remembering to take things off the stove. There's someone running over there. Right there. Or being highly destructible, like what just happened right now. Oh, a runner. Oh, a bird. Ooh, what is this pretty thing? So, yes, going to therapy helps me learn habits to manage my ADHD symptoms. Simple things like setting a timer. When I have food cooking on the stove, for example, I set a timer. And that timer reminds me to watch what I'm cooking so that I don't wander off onto other things and forget about the food that I'm preparing, which has happened in the past. Or learning to bring myself back to the moment. Meditation has also greatly helped with that. But first, I had to go to therapy. And before that, I had to get a psychiatric evaluation. So the order was go to a psychiatrist, get a psych evaluation, then find a therapist um, with whom I I had a good relationship, and then go to therapy consistently, and also to practice the techniques that I was learning in therapy. So it's been 15 years now since I first got hospitalized back in 2011. And I've had a series of psychiatrists and therapists. I've had long term relationships with both of those, um, and some short term relationships, mostly with therapists, because, like I said, it has to click. The chemistry has to be right. The therapist has to understand you as a patient, slash client and be willing to help you in the ways that will work for you. So this morning, I had an appointment with my psychiatrist just to check in. My goal is to manage my ADHD symptoms. And my psychiatrist is very, very nice. She's a nice lady. And I feel like she gets me, she listens. I don't know about other places in the world. I've heard different things about the mental health care in other countries. Some people actually move from the US to other countries for the mental health care. And for me, it was the opposite because moving from Uganda to the US created a huge positive change for my mental health. I feel like growing up as a child, the conditions that I grew up in, like going to boarding school and how strict those boarding schools were, coupled with the fact that I have ADHD, that was a lot. So when I moved to the US shortly before turning 18, I had symptoms built up that I needed help beginning to unpack. That is when my mental health journey began. In 2011, I had a mental breakdown and I was hospitalized, which needed to happen because I was in a place where I could have harmed myself. So I'm glad that I did get hospitalized. And when that happened, I stayed in the hospital, in the mental hospital, for about 2 weeks. I was so depressed. I think back to that time and just feel so much gratitude because I had so much support. But mostly, I got the help that I needed. I think a big part of why I got depressed was the weather at the time. I did get hospitalized in November of 2011, which was right at the beginning of winter, and it was very cold. The weather was beginning to change, which is why when winter comes along, when the weather starts to get colder, I like to tune in to my internal world and to make sure that I understand what's happening and to check if anything is off. I did get hospitalized. I began to see a team of mental health care specialists, psychiatrists, and therapists, and I was diagnosed with a number of things. But depression was the big one. So then began my journey of healing, of beginning to heal and beginning to understand the workings of my mind and beginning to get better. So I'm glad that I did that because I didn't have access to those services back home in Uganda. But the thing is that so many of us Africans, and I will speak for myself as an African, so many of us do not believe in mental health. In fact, when I got hospitalized in 2011, someone very close to me, who I shall not mention, said, "You're depressed. How can you be depressed?" Like, this person couldn't believe that I was depressed. And they said something like, if something like, if you're depressed, then so many of us are depressed because we are going through a lot. But anyway, their point was that um, how can you be depressed? This is life. This is just life. This is what you do. This is you wake up, you go to work, you go through the motions, and don't get depressed. Anyway, I was depressed. Some people thought that I was pretending. I don't know how you pretend to be depressed. And by the way, depression doesn't heal in a week or even a month or even a few months. Sometimes it takes a long time depending on the situation that led someone into said depression. As Africans, we need to pay more attention to mental health, and we need to be more open minded when it comes to mental health. We need to understand that people go through things, and the brain, just like any other organ in the body, can be unwell. And when that happens, you need help. You need professional help. And it's not a bad thing, it just happens. And life happens. So much happens that it is what it is. And it isn't what it isn't. So if it is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't, but you want it to be a certain way, like I want to be well, I want to learn to manage my ADHD, I want to be able to relate to people in a way that's meaningful, without the anxiety, without the harsh self judgment, without the depression, and so many other things that I will share in future videos. But we cannot just dismiss mental health issues as people pretending or being too sensitive or kids of these days being so spoiled. Come on, guys. We can do better than that. So, The US healthcare system is not perfect, but as someone who moved from a different country and I live here now, I'm very grateful for the fact that I'm able to receive quality mental health care. And that's my thing to write home about for today. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.